Hi, everyone. Welcome. If you are here for the Massachusetts Pollinator Network monthly meeting, you are in the correct Zoom room. Happy to see everybody. All right. Some folks are continuing to roll in, so just let people do that for one more minute. But yeah, welcome. It's Wednesday. It's somehow October 20th. It just flies. It truly does. It feels like we were just here. Okay.
Rosemary?
Yes. Oh, hey, Peggy.
A message went across the screen about closed captioning. Oh, we just pressed the CC at the bottom.
Yes. So you should have closed. The live transcription is turned on.
Okay, right.
So
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. We have a couple people in Western Mass that will really appreciate that.
Awesome. Yeah, the live transcription is turned on.
And there's a button in the bottom along the menu. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, and also if you, for any reason, don't want that there, you can also turn it off. Turn off the light.
Thank you.
Yep. And I also should mention that we post our meetings now to an unlisted YouTube playlist for people to view later. And the sort of auto transcription, the closed captioning for YouTube it's pretty good. I'd say it's better than the live transcription for Zoom, just based on what I've seen. Great. Okay. Well, it is 7:04, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Rosemary Malfi. I am the Pollinator Network Coordinator at Nova Mass. And yes, welcome to our October meeting. Tonight, we are going to be hearing from Green and Open Somerville about their native plant ordinance. So I think just in the interest of time, we're going to have folks this month sort of drop your name in the chat, where you're calling in from. If you have a group affiliation, feel free to list that. And you could also, put in like a short sentence about maybe like why you're excited about this talk or something that you're working on in your community. Yeah, feel free to just drop that into the chat and we'll watch that roll in. And while we're doing that, I also wanted to discuss very quickly group communication. So we have these monthly meetings, which is great, and it's a really great place to get to know folks and to talk a bit. But we want people to be able to reach each other between these meetings and to be able to ask questions and really benefit from the expertise in this group. So we are starting a Google group for the Massachusetts Pollinator Network, which basically means you can sign up to be invited into this group, and then you can email that group, and the email will go to everyone else who is signed up. So if you have a question about pollinator habitat that you're installing, or there's an online event that you think would be really relevant to the entire network, those are the kinds of things that this Google group could allow you to communicate. So right now, while we're all here, I'm going to drop in the chat a form. Okay, so if you go to the chat, there is now a link there. I'll also include this in the follow-up email if you don't feel like doing that right now. But it's a very simple form that just has your name, provide your email address. Once I have your email address, I will then add it to the Google group, and you'll get a confirmation email saying that you've now been added. Are there any questions about that before we move on? Okay, great. Facebook was the other option in the poll that I sent out, and Google group it won. So that's why we're starting with Google Group. And we'll just see how it goes. And if it seems like we want to move to a different platform, then we can do that at some point. All right, great. Well, I am going to, let's see, I'm just scrolling through the chat. Yay. Yeah, I'm gonna introduce our speakers tonight. So we have Green and Open Somerville with us, talking about the native plant ordinance that went into effect in the city of Somerville this year. It's a very, very exciting piece of local legislation. And yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Tori Antonino and Renee Scott, who are the co-founders of Green and Open Somerville. And we also have with us Lee Meunier, who's part of Green Open Somerville as well. So feel free to take it away.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Tori Antonino. As Rosemary said, I'm a co-founder of Green and Open Somerville. And Lee Meunier is here. And so is David Falk of Garden in the Woods, who was instrumental in getting this ordinance passed. Thank you, David. Nice to see everybody. So Rosemary, how do I do this? Can I screen share?
You should be able to screen share because you're a co-host.
All right.
The button should be green.
Got it. Okay. All right, share. And there it is. And I go to presentation, right? Present?
Yes.
Okay, it's a go. All right.
Good.
So here we have it. Somerville Native Planting Ordinance. Renee and Lee and David, if you have anything to interject, just go ahead, and I want to encourage the audience to take notes of your questions, because I really want to hear from everybody and see what you guys are doing in your towns. Okay, so we're Green and Open Somerville. We started out in 2015 to fight for more green space and to protest all the artificial turf that was going into the city. And then we've just been evolving. We've been doing deep pavings, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, planting native gardens, passing higher measures of sustainability in our recent zoning, removing invasive species, having a native plant tour. And I feel like one of our most proud accomplishments is the native planting ordinance. So just to give you a little bit of background, this all started in 2016. This is when it entered the legislative body with our then Board of Aldermen. We just started talking about having native plants in Lincoln Park, which is our largest park in Somerville. It's 5 acres. And that's when the city Board of Aldermen just started passing board orders. And one of them was like, for the city to write a native planting ordinance. So that languished in committee for about a year because the city staff said, no, we're not doing it. No interest. So we found a champion. Her name's Katjana Ballantyne. And she said, if the city's not doing it, guys, let's just write it. So we did. Myself and David and Renee at Renee's house, just, you know, basing it on what we knew best for legislation, but just kind of writing it and revising it. And so we just said 100%, shoot for the stars, hit the moon. So the intention was to start a conversation with the city. But what the city did is to write a white paper, and a white paper is a non-peer-reviewed scientific paper. And it focused on how native plants did not evolve in cities and how they were not a good fit, and how we need our non-natives in order to have biodiversity. And it's in 8 pages of why we can't. And to any city staff here, I know it was hard on their end too, but that was just a blow to the heart, because it's like, no, we have the best plants. We're coastal New England, salt, drought, extremes in temperatures. Anyway, so we had committee meetings for about 2 years. We had great people come and testify. David Falk. Oh, her name eludes me. Grow Native. Meredith Galogli, various members of the community who had native planting gardens. So we had like the best of the best coming to testify, and it just kept, got a no and a no. And then finally in late 2020, Katiana Ballantyne served as just a point person and negotiated with the city. And then we got the legislation passed in March of 2021. Yeah, huzzah, good job. And it didn't go into effect in May of 2021 because, well, I can get into that later. It's a little detailed. All right. And here she is, Katiana Ballantyne, Queen of the Butterflies. Thank you, Katiana. So grateful. So here's what we got. We got 100% native plants in all our riparian areas, all along the bike path, the GLX corridor, which is the green line that's coming through, and 75% native plants in our parks. And then we only got 50% with our street trees and plazas and streetscapes. So, you know, we didn't get it all, but we got some. And I guess compromise is part of the political process, even though I'm just like, let's do it. We know it can work. So part of it is we define what a native species are, what street species are. Let's see. Sorry, I'm going to go to the next slide. So what did we what did we have to maneuver? And that was the native plants definition that we came up with first was about the northeastern, was more about communities. What communities are we trying to regenerate? And it was the northeast coastal, the our uplands, the Atlantic coastal pine barrens. And so what we got was what were those coastal communities, and a general definition of east of the Mississippi. And that was what our urban forester wanted, because she wanted to have flexibility in drawing from native species. And, you know, she wasn't sure that you could get enough from just those communities. So that was a compromise. You know, we didn't get 100% across the city. I think our plazas and streetscapes will be fine if we did have 100%, but we compromised to 50%. We were trying to get straight species as a requirement, but we had soft language in there, like encourage or preferred, I think it was. There is a sunset clause. We asked for like no plant, you know, no neonics. And we got a sunset clause that said no neonics by 2024. Not ideal. And at the city council meeting where they passed the legislation, there was a friendly amendment by Lance Davis, and he said, "Can we add, you know, the intent to remove our invasive species, you know, and as we plant our native species?" And that was kiboshed instantly by the city. So, so it took 6 years, right? And it shouldn't have, but but we worked it out. And so hopefully in your communities, it's not going to take that long. So things we would have done differently is that, you know, just more outreach to groups, more outreach to people who's, you know, who we knew that were doing native plant gardens, people from the garden club, getting support of the Conservation Commission, the Urban Forestry Commission, like actually presenting to them instead of like just trying to negotiate directly with the city, like get our allies together. More education in schools, education of residents. And one of them we have here, foster more casual relationships with city staff. Think we need to have I look forward to having like some coffee or just a chat with the city to have it be less like antagonistic and more like we're all in this together. So that's something we wish we had done differently, and look forward to changing that dynamic in the future. And also, Katiana Ballantyne was bearing the burden of this ordinance, and had we to do it again, and when we strengthen the ordinance, we're just gonna like reach out to all the counselors. We need Lance, and we need Will, and we need all our people on board. So it's not just Katiana and the city. So just some challenges. So in our parks, we have the percentage, the 75 to 25% split, but we didn't define what that meant. So in one case, in one of our parks, they focused the 25% non-natives were the larger plants, were the shrubbery and a tree. And so, and the rest of it was herbaceous ground cover. Although I went to Stone Place Park and I don't see the herbaceous ground cover, but it needed to be, when we change it, I think that 75% needs to be vegetative matter or something. But ultimately, we just want to get it to 100% for our parks. It's a no-brainer. We'll be okay. Another thing that we compromised on was permitting ornamental plants to be excluded from the native planting ordinance. So you see in the lower left-hand picture, this little garden here was full of milkweed, a lot of weed, it was unkempt, but we had about a dozen milkweed plants in there, and they just came in, took them out and put in mums that they're pretty. They're very pretty, but they're not serving our ecosystem as we know they should. So yeah, just going forward, more education, building alliances. So happy to be part of this group. Really need to work on our signage. And this is like from the Xerces Society, Leave the Leaves, and shout out to Mr. Charles Pollinator Pathway with our new logo there. I mean, signage there. And if someone wants to put in the chat how you get those signs, I go ahead and do that. We're going to need to tweak the ordinance, and I look forward to the new administration that's coming, who can probably guide us in a more positive direction there. We can work on getting native plants in all new developments. Tons of development going on right now in Somerville. And then I think part of what we're going to be doing next is to focus on, how we landscape, because that's really it. Native plants are part of it, but in order to get the pollinators back, we have to shift our practices. We got to leave the leaves. We have, everything goes into the bed. We don't take things out of the bed. Everything goes into the bed. We leave the leaves. We leave the stubble. We don't mow as much. We save money and time for our city, so we can fix a few more potholes or something. It's just convincing the city that ecological landscaping is the best way to go. So that's going to be a long-term goal. And something that broke my heart is that the other day we have a pile of leaves on our sidewalk, and this kid was playing on the sidewalk, playing in the leaves, and it was a small pile of leaves. And it just touched me, like, the kids need the leaves, like it should be practiced. We get every park, every schoolyard has big piles of leaves, and we leave them for a few weeks, then they blow them into the bed. We're all good to go. But here's some bioswales. Thank you, city, for these are in Union Square, and these are in Union Square, and from the looks of it, maybe say for a few, I want to say 90% native plants. They did it. So look at the aster, the black-eyed Susans. I don't know what this is. Along the furthest to the right, looks like a heath or a creeping aster. They got purple lovegrass in there, little blue stem. thank you. And that is our new standard for streetscape design. So go Somerville. Yeah, so just for those who are going to pass this soon in your communities, just find your allies, build your base, give your presentations, and maybe then, and keep city staff apprised along the way, and get an ally, get someone on your board of aldermen, on your city council, but also involve, teachers and people from the school committee, and just the more people you have, the easier your time will be. And now we have us, our Pollinator network, who is going to support you. And then this slide just says, there are a lot of different ways that you can get this done in your city. So there's a lot of processes. There's a comprehensive plan, summer vision, that came out that, we gave input on. We have a urban forestry management plan that we're able to comment on. So all of these processes that go on in your city, participate, sign up to be on the conservation commission, or the planning board, or the design review committee. I'm sure a lot of you here have those positions, but this is about we need to have our people making the decisions, telling the DPW, leave the leaves, plant native plants. So when you rewatch this, you can pause and look at all the engagement processes. So here's something that's throughout these 5 years, we were not idle. We were creating parks and garden beds. So here's our garden bed at City Hall. A lot of beauties in there, tons of milkweed, Joe Pye, Rudbeckia triloba, some lanceleaf, nope, that one. Anyway, we got a lot of all native plants growing. And here is our Community Preservation Act. This was funded by the community preservation monies. And this design was David Falk, and it's beautiful. And we managed to get all the weeds out. And so it's self-sustaining now. I mean, I maybe spent a couple hours there this summer. David probably spent a little more. Once it starts. And now the soil has a much stronger seed bank in it. Okay, and so another picture of this little garden, some more vervain. There's columbine in May and June. And the growing center got on board early, again, designed by David Falk. Shout out. So here's some partridge pea, bone set, and this lovely path. And this park gets used a lot by children's groups, preschools, and the entire community. It's a wonderful resource. And there's here's it in the spring, iris, blue flag iris, and lots of our sedges and rushes. And thank you. I wanted to go through quick. I hope everyone got a sense of the ordinance. I'm sure I left things out, so I want to hear your questions and ideas, and want to hear how you're going to do it in your community. And here's an American lady that I saved from destruction because my dad weed whacked a lot, and it was on pussy toes. So I grabbed the eggs and hatched it this summer. And my God, how can we say no to that, right? Look at his little snout, so cute. Also, this presentation is dedicated to Gina Folia, who is our friend and mentor, and I'm sure she's watching tonight. Thank you, everybody. Yay, we did it.
My Zoom is frozen. Can you hear me? Okay, great. It says I'm muted, but I'm not, so that's good. Thank you so much for that presentation, and congratulations on getting that passed. And You know, the art, I know folks have probably seen the article, the press release. It's called a first of its kind, because as far as we all know, there really isn't something else like that exists out there. So Somerville, it really is is pioneering this. And I think the only other example was a story that I heard like yesterday or 2 days ago. I believe Newtown, Connecticut just passed a native plant ordinance, which is great. So yeah, if folks have any questions, feel free to, you can unmute yourself to say who you are, pronouns, and your question.
Peggy McLeod, she, her, and one of the statements you made at the beginning was that there's a lot of development going on, and you didn't say whether it was municipal or private, but let's say it was private. This ordinance does not affect any private developments. Is that correct? And is there a way to affect, I mean, can planning commissions and conservation commissions put, you know, would it conditions on developments for them to have to plant only natives, because you see so many non-native plants, quick and easy to buy, you know, let's just get 50 of these and they're all non-natives.
That is such a great question. And I'm hoping that's the next step. So in our new zoning, we have something called the green score, which is a set of metrics that you need to get. And to get the score, you have to have all these, it's a landscaping metric. So you need a certain amount of permeable area. You need a certain amount of landscape area. You're building, you get all these points for like a green roof. And one of the points you get is for planting native plants. But I just like, that's not enough. It's simple enough to say new development uses native plants. Like, I think that could be an ordinance. What Freddie Gillespie from Southborough does is that in order to get your permit for your landscaping, you have to go through the Conservation Commission. So this is law in Southborough. And so she is an amazing, amazing woman and does restorations and native plant activist. And so that's how she got Southborough to have all their private developers have native plants. So in order, you know, because to get the stamp for the Conservation Commission, to get your permit, that's what she requires. So that's an interesting way, you know, to get around it. And you can just negotiate privately with developers. We have a lot of developments going on in the city. And some of we have community benefits agreements. So we're asking for native plants. And some developers now are just like, you know, they've got the buzz and they're just like, we're doing 100% native plants. And this, and so I feel like once we get the ball rolling, things are going to happen. But yeah, that's one way. What Freddie does in Southborough, that's one way to get native plants in there. And of course, the other way is just to expand the ordinance for a new development. And there are probably other creative ways to do that, but that's what I got.
Tori, do you mind stopping sharing the screen just so we can see each other's faces a little bit better?
So how do I do that? Pause share?
Oh, you did.
I don't know what I did.
You did it.
Hi, all beautiful faces.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your response to that question.
Charlie Wyman, Tori, did you get any pushback from the city in terms of concern about the availability of native plants from commercial nurseries?
That absolutely came up. And that was one of the reasons why they didn't want to do any more than 50% in our streetscapes, because they were worried that they wouldn't be able to get enough native trees, especially. And so that I believe that might have been in the white paper. I'm pretty sure it was, you know, that Somerville couldn't change the market, that, you know, this is going to take a long time for people to get on board. And that was an argument they made. But we're, you know, I think all of us together, we're all changing the market. You know, Massachusetts seems on board. We have Pollinator, we have Native Plant Week that was passed by the Senate, right, in April. So yeah, that was an argument against, because there were arguments against, but we're doing it. And Somerville is not solely doing it. It's part of this, like the 351 communities in the Commonwealth that's going to absolutely change the market.
Tori,
you.
can I maybe, this is Lee, and just, I'm the one who did your screen share off. So just in case you're confused. Yeah, no, so I'm wondering if you could, one of the things that came up, I recall when at the sort of celebratory, yay, it passed meeting with the city council, one part of that was adding in that sunset clause. And I feel like that was offered by a counselor in response to the city's concerns about supply and demand and things like neonics and so a lot of that transition stuff was talked about in connection with adding a sunset clause. So I don't know if, Tori, if there's more to kind of make those connections. You might remember more about that conversation, because that was not an initial part of the ordinance that came up in that dialogue in that meeting.
I think you're right. I don't remember it exactly who said it, but it's interesting how things how things get massaged out, even to the very last meeting. I forget who offered that, but yeah, that was a compromise, and that helped the city, you know, get to yes. So
Maria, I think you had a question, and then Carol.
Yes. Tori, was there any discussion about the use or not use of pesticides?
Not in this ordinance. I think we have a commitment from the city not to use pesticides, but I'm not 100%. I know they use pesticides at the bleachers in Trum Field, like underneath the stanchions, and it's just, so I think Somerville does use some pesticides. We didn't get it in the ordinance, but I don't know, are there other cities and towns that that got a pesticide ban? Because that's part of it, right?
Carol.
So to answer that, first of all, thank you so much for what you did. I mean, that seems amazing, and how you stuck with it for so long. It's really an accomplishment. Northampton does have a ban on pesticides on municipal property. You know, cities and towns can't make regulations on pesticides for private land. That lies with the state, unfortunately. You probably know that, but maybe some people don't. But what I wanted to say also is related to pesticides, that a lot of new developments, and I happen to live in one, people use pesticides, and you can't really stop them. So I'm just concerned about building in private developments, attracting a lot of pollinators, and basically what that means for those pollinators. It seems equally important to get rid of pesticides as to provide the plants for the pollinators.
I think you just added a point to one of my slides. I think that needs to be our next one in our next step. And I want to change the slide right now, but Lee, remember, could you remember that? That's such a great point, right? We build the gardens, and then pollinators come and we kill them. So
Exactly, yeah.
Carol, would you be able to share? Can we borrow your Northampton ordinance? If you can find it and share, that'd be great. If not, we can look it up after.
If I can't find it right now, I'll send it to Rosemary. I think I'd rather send it to Rosemary, and Rosemary, you could just send out the link to it. And recently the schools hadn't adopted that ordinance. And recently, in discussions about the school children pesticide protection bill, the school committee agreed to adopt the city's ordinance. So they're not going to be using any pesticides anymore either. So, but you know, that's a hard fight. I know. I didn't wage that fight in the schools. With the school committee, I did a little bit, but that was before I lived here. But I can find out more about it if people want to know.
Yeah.
I have a
Thanks, Sarah.
question.
Heidi, yep.
Um, so, how do you make sure, is there some sort of monitoring or compliance, or some people don't even know what native plants are?
Absolutely. And so this is something we're coming up against. So, you know, the DPW is aware of the ordinance, and I think they're the ones choosing the plants. And so we're just, again, they got a bunch of non-native hydrangeas in there. And so we do have a compliance section in the ordinance that says before December 31st of each year, the city needs to publish a report of what was planted and the percentages of natives versus non-natives. And I'm very much looking forward to that report.
Oh,
because,
interesting. So there is
you
some
know,
compliance.
So
then you guys review the list.
we review the list, and I'm a member of the Urban Forestry Committee too, and it's frustrating, and we're talking about it tomorrow. Like, what is the process? Like, is the DPW is deciding, the city's deciding, is, lights and lines, is it, so we just, we don't really know. And I kind of feel like the city does exist in silos, and hopefully we'll just be able to connect and sort of all be aware of the process, and then we can help each other. But
Is there any kind of
Yeah.
advisory committee that was set up as part of the ordinance to work with DPW?
I really like that.
What can you repeat that, Maria?
I'm just wondering if, like in Andover, we're working on a tree ordinance, and part of the process is to establish a tree committee of residents, to work, to advise, to work with the town people on the trees. And I just wondered if that might be, sometimes DPWs don't want a lot of input, but if you could offer to do some of the legwork for them of identifying the nurseries that have the plants, that can make things easier for them. You have to figure out how you can make things easier for them.
Right. Well,
I
I
love that
think,
suggestion.
I think the fact that you got this through is amazing. It almost seems miraculous to me, but it's great that you've paved the way for everybody else.
That means a lot. Thank you for saying that, Heidi.
I actually have a question. I don't know if you would know the story, but or Lee, but in talking with some of the state agencies about their plantings, they're very constrained in who they can purchase from. So they are only allowed to use approved vendors, and it gets even wonkier. It's like, it's not just the approved vendor list, it's like a particular contract has to name certain vendors and they cannot deviate from them. So they're very constrained in what they can purchase, which, as we all know, is very difficult because you can't always predict what nursery will have what. Is that similar for DPW? Do they also have to go through like a vendor process? Do you know if that happens at the local level?
Lee, are you taking notes? Okay, that is an excellent question, Rosemary. So I think the main vendor with the city is probably Cavicchio's, right? That's sort of the main game in town. But through the community preservation, our Morse Kelly project, we needed to expand our vendors. So we expanded our vendors to Garden in the Woods and to a place called Arc Wild. But there again is like, okay, we have these vendors, myself and David are using them, the community garden is using them. but is the DPW using them? Like, so it's like making that connections, and the answer is we don't know the process. And luckily, again, the Urban Forestry Committee, we have a group called the Species Selection and Planting Standards, otherwise known as SAP, who's a part of, so we're a committee of the Urban Forestry Committee, and that's our on the conversation tomorrow for the Urban Forestry Committee to be like, what's the process and who buys the plants, and are we using the vendors that got approved? But and in the RFP, like, are people, you know, I think our tree people are for the street trees are Leahy, and I don't know if they're confined to just one tree, you know, nursery. I think they work with Tuckahoe, but can they source from other nurseries? Another question to ask. These are great questions.
Yeah, this would be very important to get clarity on, to understand, because I worked for UMass for many years and did a lot of procurement. And I understood the rules for UMass, but I don't know if they're statewide. So for example, we weren't restricted to a certain contractor list if our purchase was, I think it was under $2,000. You can buy a lot of plants for $2,000. You can also break your purchase up into more than one invoice. You know, there are ways. There's also the RFP process, and then you're open to anybody. You know, you're not listed, you're just not restricted, but there are some stuff, like building stuff, you had to go with a state contractor list. You could not just go out with an RFP, you know, request for bid or request for proposal. So it'd be super, super good for us working in towns to understand, is there some state laws or is it individual town laws? That would be really important. Thank you.
Again, great question. And also Lee and Renee, if you want to field any questions, David, just jump right in.
I think Catherine has a hand up.
Hi, yes, I hope you can hear me. I have AirPods in right now. So my name is Catherine McCandless. I work with the City of Boston in the Environment Department, and I work with our Conservation Commission pretty closely. And I have a question about the bioswales that you mentioned, because, you know, the City of Boston would love to be able to expand our green infrastructure for many different reasons. But a hurdle that we continuously come across is just the installation and maintenance of green infrastructure across the city. So I'm just wondering if you happen to know, for the bioswales that have, I guess, resulted from this ordinance, do you know who is installing and maintaining them? Like, is it a vendor? Is it the DPW? Yeah, just any information you can give is great.
Yep. Okay. I'm putting that on my list.
Oh, great.
I don't know. And that's a great question. You know, and that's kind of like, we don't have an in-house gardener whose job it is to do sort of like a finer ecological gardening. Like, so I'm guessing it's contractors, but usually that's a limited time, right? Or for us, it's often a limited, like, you know, 2 years, whatever. So I'm going to ask the next administration, you know, can we train some of our DPW staff, like, or can we hire someone who's knowledgeable of the plants who can like lead the DPW, or do we stick with private contractors? Like, you know, or do people adopt bioswales? We have an adopt a tree program. So people are adopting like our new trees and tree wells. So, you know, and they can, as long as they're not covering the tree, there's like space to add a little vegetative ground cover. So, but I don't know. And Lee, you're making notes, right?
Well, I can jump in a little bit here only from, and I don't know in terms of names and whatnot, but I can confirm. So there's a lot of development that's happening in Union Square in Somerville. And just in speaking with Ed Halloran, who's the president of the Somerville Municipal Employees Association, I've been in contact with him just about some job descriptions for particular people within the DPW to kind of help set up whoever's hired to have that knowledge. And so we're working a lot with some of the union stewards around that. Now, a lot of those, so this is a little bit, I'm digressing a little bit, but a lot of those positions are managerial. So that's another thing to kind of contemplate. If these positions are not within the union, it means it's not doesn't get the union scrutiny. So the city can potentially hire. So you also want to catch some of those when there's hirings happening. And that's one of the things that we're also navigating as well. Like if you have a native plant ordinance, but then you have nothing that the superintendent of grounds is that they're not held to, then you're sort of setting up each department that's already siloed to not be able to work together in the future. So we're doing what we can on that end as well. So that's one piece. But in conversations with the president of the union, he did say, because I was talking to him also about training, and it sounded like at least in Union Square that there is a core group of union workers who are doing the planting of a lot of the rain gardens that are being set up along the new bike paths through Union Square. I think there's like a set of maybe half a dozen workers. Now, I can't speak to the knowledge level of people who were involved. And so, and the continued maintenance once they're installed, Catherine, I don't know if they'll also be charged with that responsibility, but I do know that was a core set of union city workers with DPW who were doing those installations.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And yes,
Yeah,
thank
no
you
worries.
for all your efforts for getting this implemented. It's a really exciting ordinance, and yeah, hoping that Boston can look to do something similar at some point.
There's all, oh, sorry.
Hi, I can speak to maintenance issues. I think you mentioned this, that when there's an installation, there's a contract for the installation, and then maybe there's a 1 or 2 year maintenance contract. But what we found in Northampton is that's it. The city never puts aside any more money for maintenance. And so it created an opportunity for Pollinate Northampton, my organization, to step forward with volunteers to, take care of all the weeding. And we do replantings and, sneak in some tomato plants and things like that. And I convinced the senior center director to create a position for outdoor maintenance that would be for senior citizens looking for tax abatement? So you can do, some towns have a tax abatement program for a limited number of people. And so she funded that, and they got somebody to, work on weeding those gardens and organizing volunteers to weed the gardens. So I think many times it has to be kind of a public-private partnership. And then also if it's pollinator-friendly weeders who know something, then you can kind of direct plantings to go in that direction if they're already not in that direction.
That is absolutely brilliant. And I just love the fact that you said opportunity. Like after 2 years, I thought you were going to say, and then everything goes down the drain and we're stuck with these hideous bioswales. That's where I thought you were going, but you did a total 180. And you used, and just that word, created an opportunity. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
And ours was a bioswale / rain garden for street runoff. And I would say about 1/3 of the plants that a professional from Boston recommended for that, 1/3 of the plants did not survive past 3 years. So there's another opportunity. There's holes. What can we put there that's actually native?
And maybe another thing I can, sorry, this is Lee again, just in terms of Somerville, and this actually came up, this has come up, a lot of the climate groups here and sustainability groups are now working very intentionally with labor groups in the city and thinking about that sort of connection around in terms of economic and climate resilience and opportunities to create work, meaningful work in the city. And one thing that's coming up, I think this coming Wednesday that we've talked about, and Tori recalls probably from our a meeting we had on Monday, the American Rescue Plan funds that are going to be coming to each of our cities. And so I know here in Somerville, there's going to be the beginning of a conversation about like different pockets and putting ideas forward for where to spend those funds. So I don't know what's happening in each municipality, what that looks like for you all, but maybe keep your eyes open because that's coming. And so that might be a place to engage and think about that.
And one of the pockets is infrastructure.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of like getting businesses stabilized and making sure people are healthy and having homes, but there is that bucket for infrastructure. So that's an opportunity, totally. Maria?
All right. Go ahead,
Um,
Maria.
I was earlier today, I was on a Ecological Landscape Alliance webinar on, you know, the 10 things to do if you want to rewild in 10 steps. And they mentioned something that sounds really fascinating. And I don't know if you have a space for it, but it's called Miyawaki mini forests, and you can put like a ton of seedlings, so it's very inexpensive, and you just cram them in and they can be all natives, and then you've got like a little mini forest. Did you know about this? I can tell.
Lee, do you want to take that?
Oh yeah, well, what I was just going to do, I mean, it might speak to it even better. A link that I'll put in the chat. That's basically in Cambridge. They just put installed. I don't know. That's not a good word for it. Plants. You don't install plants. That's
They planted.
They plant plants. They planted a Miyawaki forest in Cambridge in Danahy Park. And so I'll put a link in here to an article about it. That was with the local Mothers Out Front chapter there, their Healthy Soils group. So hopefully that will speak more accurately to what Maria's bringing up. But they're pretty magical.
They're magical. And the wonderful thing about them is like, they can go in tight spaces. Like I think the Danahy one was like, I don't know, 200 by 200. Is that 4,000 square feet? It's 4,000 square feet. And they planted 1,400 plants in this space. And yeah, we're hoping to get one done here, possibly in honor of Gina Folia, who's our friend who passed. And but that's definitely on the docket, and I think we're talking to Cambridge about it. When is that?
200 by 20, I think. Right?
Oh, 200 by, yes, right?
Yeah, 3
Otherwise,
zeros.
Otherwise it's for
40,000.
40,000. We'll go for the max. Get 40,000.
I love that idea, Maria, thanks.
We are coming close to the 8 o'clock hour. I think one thing that I really liked about how you closed was, you know, some of the things that you were kind of reflecting on and maybe wish you had done differently, and how you'll kind of approach the next project. Was about garnering support in your community, right? Sort of reaching out to all these different folks, which I think is super important. And also it's a big job, right? Because, you know, you need a lot of people to reach out to all of those different entities. Is there, you know, looking back, is there sort of one, because you list a number of them, are there certain ones in particular that you felt like were most important that you wish you'd sort of connected with a bit more?
So I underestimated the Somerville Garden Club, and that I regret, because I'm not a member, and I thought they were more about mums and geraniums, and it turns out there's a hardcore group of native plant enthusiasts. So my bad, we didn't reach out to them. And I think we would have had like a real posse. Cause like maybe the Conservation Commission, like I wish we had brought them in, but I don't know. I just, for some reason, I thought that they would just hook, line and sinker, like side with the city and be like, no, we can't do it only in places that are already green because our native plants didn't evolve in cities. And it's like, well, what indigenous plants did evolve in a city? None. Anyway, sorry, but that's my regret.
The thing, when you mentioned gardens, garden clubs, the Garden Club Federation of Massachusetts, I'm the environmental awareness person. And they've had a native plant challenge going on for 4 years. So every garden club in Massachusetts should be very aware of native plants and working to get those planted. So that's a really good ally.
That's very good.
I wanted to make a quick comment that I've noticed that many of the sustainability committees that were developed like 10 years ago, like Sustainable Somerville, Northampton sustainability committees, they're mostly about energy and recycling.
Mhm.
And I think one challenge for all of us is maybe we ought to go to one of the meetings and just talk about what about the downfall of so many birds and insects, and I think it's an entry level something to like tickle them a little bit and get them involved perhaps.
Carol.
So right before this, Peggy, I was at a meeting that I'll tell you about, or you could talk about that. That's not what I was going to say, but I wonder if you have materials that you use for educational purposes. I'm always looking for materials on why native plants, and if you have some effective materials that you could share. You must have generated a lot of information to convince people.
Yeah, we must have. I feel like we have information on our website. I think it's Green and Open Somerville.com. I don't know if Lee, you can put that in the chat. We did generate a lot of material. We came up with a native planting list that we stole in part from Lexington. But this is just a reminder to get the stuff like online and available, right? I'll also direct you to the Mystic Charles Pollinator Pathways. I feel like they're generating like material, like things to share. We have some great signage at Morse Kelly Park that talks about, that explains that Morse Kelly is an evolving landscape. And another shout out to David Falk who wrote it, was about, adjusting one's eye and like, what is this mess? And I can't share pictures in the chat. Rosemary. Oh, sorry.
I have to add, does anybody know this book? A New Garden Ethic?
I don't.
By Benjamin Voigt. He works out in Nebraska, whatever, but it's a very short book. And it's the best description of why native plants are important that I've read. It's really concise, and he goes into a lot of detail.
Can you put put the book information in the chat?
In the chat, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
If I may too, I mean, I know you're asking obviously resources like tangible, and my observation too, and again, I feel very blessed to be in Somerville, which there are just so many, and I would imagine this is in every community, just got to put it out there and find people. Like there's so much abundance within each person. And so here in Somerville, like Meredith Gologly that Tori mentioned earlier, David Falk, people live here. These are residents of Somerville. And so a lot of the education, especially I'd say to city councilors, to get them on board, was bringing the physical people to them and having them talk and be in discussion with them. Tatiana Ballantyne, who was mentioned earlier, we were blessed. And again, and this might be something you'd be able to do with your city council, your select people, is to request time to bring residents in to talk about the importance of native plants and biodiversity. So we just happened to be here in Somerville. We had done as part of a larger sort of climate and sustainability coalition. And through Katiana's request, we went in and presented sort of a larger umbrella of like importance of climate and sustainability. And then we were invited to come into the city council. At the time, I think the commitment was trying to do something monthly or every other month. And like time was carved out for our groups to come in and bring residents in, basically to be like a resource bank and bring people in to talk to them and to help educate the city council on topics that they felt like they didn't have the knowledge on themselves. Another example, and there were examples that were not just related to plants. We talked to them about passive house, because as far as energy building certifications, but we did one, there was one on biodiversity as well. And Meredith Gologly was a person, from what I recall, who came in and spoke directly with them. So that was also just bringing people directly in to have a dialogue is pretty powerful if you can. Yeah.
And potentially more powerful even than written materials, right? Because
I know
sure
we're
they get
almost, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So it's powerful to have people actually and talk. Sorry.
Yeah, I know we're almost at time, but was it Ann, I think was from Boston. So I just posted in the chat, the Arlington, they do storm green infrastructure like nobody's business. And I just clicked on their website, and there is about a dozen videos about doing green infrastructure and bus shelter roofs. And so I appreciate, Carol, did you give me that prompt? What are the resources? And I forget the person who is that point person. I think her name is Heidi, but Ann O'Connor, I think it was you, to make that connection. Right? Did I get you right? No, you're not from Boston?
I think it might have been Catherine McCandless.
Okay. Well, if she's still with us, and for anyone, just like Arlington is you can reach out, of course, to our public space and urban forestry, but I know Arlington is really paving the way on that.
Excellent. Yes, so we are at 8:05. I want to respect everyone's time. So thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I so appreciate you being here, and thank you, Tori, Lee, Renee, if you're here. I know she was having internet connection troubles. Thank you so much for coming and talking about the ordinance. It's just very inspiring and gives us a lot to think about, and hopefully, can happen some in our own communities in more places across the state. So thank you. I will be sending out a follow-up email to all registrants with the date of our next meeting. It's very likely to be the week after Thanksgiving. It will either be that Tuesday, which I think is the last day in November, or it will be Wednesday, which is the first day in December. But stay tuned. I will let you know. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Rosemary.
Yeah.